and what you are about to listen will not only surprise you, it will leave you with more questions than answers. Lewis Hamilton, brand new incorporation of the Italian team, went on the way with a determination that only a world champion can project. From the first round, its SF25 was aggressive but balanced, fast in line and stable in braking. The perfect combination to dominate Monza. The watches confirmed it. Quick return after fast return, Hamilton was strengthened at the top of the timetable. Beside him, Charles Leclerc completed an unexpected 1-2 for the Scuderia. The atmosphere in the boxes was of contained celebration, of relief, of recovered trust. From the pit wall, Vasseur smiled. It was a moment of claim. After a seasonal start full of doubts, media pressure and undue errors, Ferrari found comfort in his sacred circuit. And he did it thanks to the man who, a year ago, was Mercedes' symbol, Lewis Hamilton. The narrative was perfect. A 7-time champion who had left his comfort zone to rebuild as a legend in another territory with other colors. The red dream began to take shape. But that superficial euphoria hid deep cracks. In data monitors, some engineers noticed details that did not square with what was expected. The figures of the Hamilton car were exceptional, but also disturbing. Unusual oscillations were recorded in the rear aerodynamic load. The differential response seemed different from previous training. The simulations failed to replicate exactly the behavior that Hamilton had on track. At first glance, it was impossible to notice something strange. The British driving was fluid, precise, confident. But in a team like Ferrari, obsessed in detail, everything that does not fit the theoretical model is a reason for alert. What began as a hopeful practice slowly became an unknown technique to solve. Why this car, in the hands of Hamilton, behaved so differently from what is planned? What had changed between the previous session and this performance explosion? The suspicions grew. And with them, also the fear that what seemed like a glorious resurrection was, in reality, the first sign of a storm about to unleash. Every great scandal begins with an anomaly. A small deviation in the data. A discrepancy that, at first, seems less even normal in a sport where thousands of variables influence every second. But when inconsistencies are repeated, when the car does not respond as it should, and when a pilot from Lewis Hamilton's caliber begins to ask questions, it is impossible to look the other way. Ferrari had been dragging concerns from the Netherlands Grand Prix. Zandvoort had been a turning point. Hamilton suffered an accident that, in another context, would have been attributed to a human error. But he denied it. It was not a lack of concentration, he said, and his words did not fall in broken bag. In Maranello, a technical investigation was activated that reviewed until the last component of SF25. The findings were disturbing. The telemetry of the accident revealed a failure in the change system. A degradation in the passage of marches blocked the rear wheels right at the critical instant. This caused a sudden loss of rear axle control, which added to a slightly wet track and a line of trace just 10 centimeters wider than normal, the spin trusted. But the most serious came later, when Zandvoort's data with Monza's data were compared. The SF25 had changed, and not by technical evolution, not for a scheduled improvement. It had been altered. The sensors indicated an undocumented modification in the rear conduction height. This variable is critical. It directly affects the aerodynamic balance, the stability when braking, and the capacity of the car to change the direction with precision. A minimum variation in this parameter can make the difference between a perfect turn and an accident. But it was not the only strange adjustment. The preload of the differential had also been modified. This component regulates how the rear wheels turn in relation to each other, directly influences the traction, the acceleration at the curve outlet, and how the car behaves when the pilot applies gas to the limit. And the most alarming, neither Hamilton nor his track engineer had record of these changes. The British pilot, known for his meticulousness and ability to feel the slightest detail of the car, had not been informed of the modifications. What meant that someone inside Ferrari with access to their configuration had intervened on their own. No protocols, no permissions, no transparency. This revelation broke a sacred code in Formula One. Absolute communication between pilot and engineers. The car is an extension of the pilot. Everything must be perfectly calibrated in your style, your preferences, your trust. Manipulating that relationship without consent is dynamiting the basis of any serious sports project. At that time, what was once a simple doubt became a structural urgency. Ferrari understood that it was not only a technical failure. It was a possible internal sabotage. A fissure within the system that put into play not only the competitiveness of the team, but the safety of one of the most important pilots in history. The stage was darker than anyone imagined, and the worst was yet to be discovered. When a Formula One team discovers that its own car has been modified without authorization, the protocol dictates a technical review. But when the car in question belongs to Lewis Hamilton, and the changes put their life and their relationship with the team at risk, which begins as a review quickly transforms into an institutional crisis. Fred Vasseur, the director of Ferrari, is no stranger to pressure. He has lived complex moments in his career. But what he discovered after analyzing Hamilton's SF25 left him stunned. It was not an isolated failure or a simple omission in the system. It was a deliberate intervention, technically surgical, logistically orchestrated, and politically dangerous. The data confirmed that the alterations in the car settings were carried out without following the usual command chain. Neither the Hamilton track engineer, nor the car's performance chief, not even the simulation area knew anything about it. Vasseur then connected the points. All modifications came from the same nucleus, the so-called Central Performance Group. This group, created by Ferrari as an independent unit with the aim of maximizing the technical development of the cars, operated under an almost autonomous logic. Composed of a team of elite engineers, its function was to design high-impact improvements without day-to-day operational limitations. In theory, they had to function as an innovation incubator. But what happened in Monza was the opposite. They became a hidden risk factor within the structure. Vasseur confronted the group. The answers he received were evasive. Some responsible had acted according to the projected performance, others said that simulated data justified the adjustments. But none could answer why they did not inform the pilot, nor why they altered critical parameters the same race weekend. What was evidenced was even more alarming. Hamilton's SF25 was not only being manipulated without its approval, but there was a structural rupture in the team's communication channels. Trust broke. Hamilton, upon learning, reacted with calculated coldness. He did not make public statements, but internal sources say that he demanded a private meeting with Vasseur and his technical group. The tension was palpable. For a pilot who bet his legacy to Ferrari, finding these internal cracks was more than a disappointment. It was a betrayal. The situation climbed to such a level that Vasseur ordered an immediate internal audit. But this time, it would not be a review within Maranello's walls. External consultants, experts in industrial processes and sports management were summoned to audit the entire SF25 decision-making chain, from design, through manufacturing, to track implementation. An unpublished process for Ferrari in recent times. What Lewis Hamilton has lived in Ferrari goes beyond a technical incident. We are not talking about a simple calibration error. We are facing a deep ethical conflict, one that raises uncomfortable questions about the power structure in one of the most iconic motoring teams. Who really decides what happens with the car? What happens when innovation becomes arrogance? What happens when the performance search is put to the integrity of the system? Hamilton arrived in Ferrari with a clear mission: return to the rampant Cavallino to the top. Not for money, not by marketing, by legacy, by history, by redemption. Leaving Mercedes was not just any decision. It was a personal bet. And every minute that has passed since then has been a career against the time to integrate its piloting style, its values, its way of working, in a machinery that has often proven to be as bright as chaotic. And in Monza, that machinery betrayed him. Yes, Hamilton led the first practice session. Yes, Ferrari shone before his audience. But all that is now stained with doubt. Because if the car he drove was not the one he thought, if his closest engineers were not aware of the modifications, if there is a group within the team that operates with a parallel agenda, then there is no victory that is worth it. The real danger to Ferrari is not that Hamilton loses confidence in the car. It loses confidence in the team. Because in Formula One, trust is not measured in tenths of a second. It is measured in decisions, in gestures, in mutual respect. Fred Vasseur is before the biggest challenge of his mandate, rebuilding that confidence before it is too late. The technical audit is just the first step. What is needed now is a deep cleaning, a redefinition of roles, a culture where performance is not an excuse to break protocols. And for Hamilton, the crossroads is even more delicate. Can you continue giving 100% knowing that your immediate environment has been corrupted? Can you lead a team from the track when the team has failed to protect it outside it? This scandal in Monza is a brutal reminder that Formula One is not earned only with talent, with speed, or money. You win with unity, with transparency, with ethics. Ferrari has to decide if he wants to remain part of the show, or if he is willing to be the team that imposes respect in each circuit in the world. And you, as a fan, as a passionate spectator, you also have a decision to make. Do you see this as an anecdote more than a complicated season? Or how the symptom of a deeper structural problem in Ferrari? Leave me your opinion and comments.